This week, we begin a 2-week set of content about how we collect data in the social sciences. This is sort of a required week in a methods course. I have to explain to you how to run a survey, even though many of you will never attempt to run your own project with a survey. Even if you start doing your own research, there's a chance running your own survey won't be necessary. And that's, as I talk about in a couple weeks, part of what gets me so excited about research is just the amount of data that already exists on the internet that's free for you to use anytime you want. I've recently started running my own surveys, but for a long time I was able to do a lot of research just by collecting what was already available. Running a survey can often require a few $1,000s to do it right, and that might sound like a deal breaker to a lot of you. But it's possible for students like you to participate and conduct great research without collecting new data. I think that's where the value is, being able to identify that data and having the tools necessary to actually answer the questions you want to address. That said, even if you don't collect your own data and you just want to use what's available online, a lot of that data will be collected from surveys. And so it's really necessary for you to understand the method if you're going to use that data. Surveys are to some degree the bedrock of the social sciences. They're the most common form of research we use. They're everywhere. They're necessary. But they can also be a bit complicated, especially once the data is actually collected. And that's where the additional reading steps in this week. Collecting data isn't really the beginning or the end of the challenges, because then you have to know what to do with the data. The article about cleaning racial data in the US Census is interesting, I think, because it touches on something we can all understand, but never would have thought about before. A lot of the value in surveys is putting people into bins for comparison. Does this person support legalizing marijuana or not? Just a clean yes or no. But humans are more complicated than that. Our race is complicated, our background is complicated, our positions and our opinions are complicated. And so surveys do a great job of simplifying that and sort of distilling it down into simple categories. But there's also a lot of danger there in the simplification. And so I think the article does a really great job of bringing a lot of that to the forefront. And so this week connects with next week really well as well, because then we'll be discussing interviews, which is another way of collecting data. This week also builds into the second half of the class really well, because in the second half we'll talk a lot about survey data, and we'll focus on using survey data and how to actually use it and get it ready to be sort of used in the analysis, cleaning the data, getting it ready. And so this is just the first of sort of two sections on collecting data. This half is about quantitative data and more specifically surveys. And then next week we'll talk about another form of data. And that's sort of a 2-week set which builds into some of these later concepts of what we actually want to be able to do and the questions we want to answer.